and welcome to Your Coaching Journey, a podcast for doctors about coaching. Whether you're a coaching doctor, a doctor who is learning to coach, or a doctor who'd like to build coaching into your professional life, then this is the podcast for you. Hello, I'm Tom Dillon, and with me today is my co-host and business partner, Helen Leathers. Good morning, Helen. How are you?
Good morning, Tom. I'm very well. I've got my cup of tea.
Got your cup of tea? I've got my cup of tea too.
How are you this morning?
Yeah, I'm good.
Excellent.
It's snotty, but...
That's nice. Thanks for sharing.
It's all right. Blow my nose. It's okay. I'm ready to go.
Good.
What are we talking about today, Helen?
Well, you know, we aren't really the type of coaches that really focus on just achieving goals and helping clients to create plans.
Yes, I can honestly say that's not normally. How has that evolved? I think maybe just the types of things that people come to me with are not those things of, okay, I've got this goal, how do I create an action plan? The people I work with are normally quite capable of doing that for themselves. They just get a little bit stuck in their own head and have problems with people, which is the stuff I tend to get in the coaching.
Yeah, and I think it was just my experience of life coaching initially was very much about where's your goal and where are you heading and how are you going to get there? And we're not like that.
Yeah, and my initial experience, I did some work for a local government scheme, like a growth accelerator thing, which is very much around business goals and having a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, we were both involved with that and we never met.
Well, I suppose a lot of people were involved.
Yes, that's true.
And you were living in a different part of the country as well.
Yeah, different county.
Very unlikely that we would have met.
That's true, yeah. Anyway, it struck me that whilst we've talked about whether a goal is essential for coaching, which we talked about in...
Episode 40.
Episode 40, that's the one. We've never really spoken about goals and action plans on this podcast. And there could well be people listening who are thinking maybe they want to be more goal focused, or they might have a client who comes to them and says, I want a plan. And perhaps I want to come back to you, return to you, work through that plan with your support. So I just thought it'd be useful to talk about it.
Very good. And we're transformational coaches, so we tend to work at a deeper level, but it could be that, in working at the deeper level, it might be because someone can't plan and can't formulate goals. And so we might allow them to become unstuck and to go ahead and do all of this stuff. And then they might want some help in doing it.
Absolutely. So I just thought we could have a chat about what's involved, some of the elements that contribute to this type of coaching, and what tools and approaches we've used with clients in the past.
Very good. Let's do that then.
So when I mentioned this topic to you, you did challenge me.
Did I?
Well, as you do.
I don't believe that. I can't believe I would challenge you. I must have been having an off day.
So you said, but we're all about goals. There's always something that we're aiming for.
Desired outcomes, maybe,
yes,
rather than goals.
Yeah, and that's the difference, isn't it? We don't really talk about the person that comes to coaching and says, I want to achieve this by this deadline. Or perhaps, as you say, someone's got unstuck with their thinking and then they're like, okay, now I'm ready to go for this. So I think it's the planning, really.
Yeah, I did have someone recently who I was coaching around things they were stuck with in the workplace, things he was struggling with. And then he said, next time, I really want to focus on my learning, how I move forward. So I want to focus on that. Learning plan. I said, well, okay, we'll do that then. And I just left it with him and came into the next room and into the next meeting. And he said, yeah, right, well, I've got this problem. And all the learning plan stuff just had gone out the window because what was more important was sorting out things he was struggling with. So never happened. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with him, but it never happened.
Maybe this episode will help you then.
Yeah, maybe.
It comes back to you. So I guess that it is more about the planning part. But whenever I've been on a goal-setting workshop, and I have been on a few, I worked with an organisation that ran them regularly, they're never just about the goal-setting part. They're about get the goal and then plan, implement, action steps, contingency plan, that kind of thing, whilst working towards the goal. So I think the planning often gets conflated with the goal setting.
Yes.
They kind of become one thing.
Yes. Yeah, and they're kind of different elements of that.
Yeah.
Working towards a goal, aren't they?
Yeah. But we have to start with a vision in mind. So I thought this was a good opportunity perhaps to talk about something that I know you are familiar with, the work of Richard Boyatzis.
Oh, yes. And the default mode network.
Yes.
So according to Richard Boyatzis, who's an organizational psychologist, but he does a lot of work around leadership and coaching. I don't know whether his work is actually about coaching, but he talks in coaching circles about the work that he does. So he uses fMRI scanners to try and work out what's going on for leaders. So he would say that if we focus on the planning, the problem solving, the actions towards achieving goals, then if we did that too soon in the coaching room, then that can be unhelpful because it initiates the task mode network, which is very much, okay, let's get on with it. Let's bang, 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 bang.
Right.
Which is great. If you've got a task and you want to get on with it, that's fine. But it then shuts down the default mode network, which is really that kind of daydreaming. Let's come up with some ideas. Let's think properly around this. And so that visioning would get shut down by engaging the task mode network.
So we might stop that generating new thinking.
Yeah, and I think that's a danger of if we think about the old GROW model of what's your goal, what's your reality, what are your options, what are you going to do? If we just go straight to goal, then we miss out a lot of the generating new thinking that I associate with coaching because the goal's already there, isn't it?
Yeah, so some deeper thinking around what you want your life to look like, perhaps.
Yeah.
Wider thinking.
Yeah, there's a lady, I can't remember her name now, part of the Norwegian royal family, who's a researcher, Gabrielle Erstinger, I think her name is, who had a WHOOP acronym for her visioning. So it was that wish. What's your wish? And then what outcome would that give you? So what would that mean to you to have that if you had it in your life? And then tracks back to, what are the obstacles that might get in the way and how you're going to plan for it. But it was that, okay, let's have the vision. That's great. Okay, but what will that actually give you? And I think if you just go to the goal and desired outcome, whatever it is, just go, okay, let's go. Get on with it. Let's plan.
And that's an interesting differentiation, isn't it? Because I think people think I've got a vision and that is the goal.
Yes.
But I think the vision's broader. The vision's something to get excited about. It's more in the future. It's more holistic.
Yeah.
And then within that, there'll be a goal, or probably multiple goals, but a goal you can focus on and work towards, which will be part of that bigger vision.
Yeah, and I think it's actually thinking about what would it be like for you if you actually got that, if you actually achieved that? What would it give you? Who would you be if you had that? Someone was talking to me in a coaching session the other day. So we were doing some practice coaching on one of our workshops. So I was making up the numbers and someone was coaching me and they said, well, 2 years' time, what would your work day look like? I said, well, I'd get out in the sun, go for a run, have breakfast, do a couple of hours online, play tennis. It's very much that. And it sounds great, doesn't it? But I haven't yet done that thinking of, okay, what would that actually feel like? And would that satisfy me just to be doing a couple of hours of work a day? Haven't done that thinking through yet. But so the vision is potentially there, but we need to understand what it means to us.
Yes. So bringing that in first before we even think about what a plan might look like.
Yeah. So the whole goal setting thing, I think, does require more thought than, well, that's my goal. And I suppose because a lot of coaching stems from the business world and sports, where there are specific goals and kind of measurable goals, and you can just set as we did with Growth Accelerator, you would set a 5-year plan, and it was normally to get to 10 million turnover in 5 years. I don't know why someone had come up with that figure, but and I guess because it's then you can sell your business and walk away. So that whole thing is, okay, let's get into that point. I mean, in sports, then obviously there is potentially a set goal that you want to get to. So there is that almost, well, it doesn't really matter about thinking through what it would mean to you. We've just got a goal and we go for it. Yeah.
But what we want to do is really connect with the wider vision, the emotions that brings, whether it aligns with your values, like you said, with yours, would it satisfy you to only work 2 hours a day?
Yeah. And I think that's an important point, that if it's not congruent with who we are and how we want to live our life, why would we set it as a goal?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people in business do set goals that are just going to make them very unhappy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for us, we often said that we have well-being at the centre of the work that we do. So how does that vision fit with a sense of well-being?
Yeah.
And that's a good check-in for any goal anyway, isn't it? Yeah. In the, not just in reaching it, but in the process of reaching it, how does that fit with your well-being?
I remember one guy I was working with when I was doing the growth acceleration stuff, and the business was very much, let's get to 10 million. That was the goal. And he was trying to sell that to his team, but it was sort of like let's get to 10 million, then I can sell and walk away. And
I can make loads of money.
Yeah. Oh, what's in it for the team? Didn't really have I think, you need to be selling this in a different way.
Yeah. So we're really talking about establishing an emotional connection with that future that people want to have, ensure it aligns with who they are, how they want to show up in the world, who they're impacting, what the benefits are.
Yeah, someone came up with what was it on? Something I heard the other day, and I'd heard it a few weeks ago, and I don't know whether it was in the same context, but it was, what will this decision make of you? And is that who you want to be?
Ooh.
Which is lovely, isn't it?
Really lovely.
It's quite profound, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if you're setting a goal and that's your decision, okay, what will this make of you? And is that who you want to be?
I like that.
I don't know where it came from. And so I've come across it twice in recent weeks.
Okay. So in the area that you're currently reading or listening, something you're listening to, that's coming up.
I've been on Mad Men.
Oh, yes, you're watching that.
I don't think it was, but it could have been.
So then we do need some structure to that vision, some reality in that vision of what we're going for then. After we've got the bigger vision, we're clear on that, we said about having a goal within that.
Yes. If we're saying I want to be healthier, I want to be more balanced, I want to live somewhere nicer, want to work 2 hours a day, they're a little bit vague.
Yeah.
Not necessarily quantifiable, not measurable. How would the coachee know when they'd achieve them, maybe? So if we've got all those questions, then we really need to bring some reality into the mix, into the conversation. So what will actually be different in their lives?
Yeah, be more clear. What does healthier look like?
Yeah. Although someone, like I say, someone asked me, what would a day look like? I kind of was gave this very, we could have breakfast and play tennis. But maybe that is real. Gosh.
Maybe. So I was thinking about a workshop I ran a few years ago. It seems mad that it was so long ago, actually. It was 2018. And I ran that with a friend of mine, Holly. And at the start of the day, I took everyone through a visualization exercise, like a meditative exercise, to have them really explore and see where they wanted to be in 12 months' time. And it was such a lovely exercise. So many people were surprised by what came up for them. They thought they were there to focus on their business. And then when we did the meditation, they were thinking about their life, the bigger picture, which brought in work-life balance, where they were living and that kind of thing. It was lovely and it was really fascinating.
Yeah, and I think we talked about art, didn't we, in episode 143, and that sometimes is a way of getting people to perhaps visualise, if they can't do it in the moment, is to go away and draw it.
Yeah.
Let's see what you come up with.
Think about it. And
actually think about it properly,
Yeah.
Take some time.
I have to say, I never visualised or imagined we would be over 100 episodes on this podcast when we started out.
Well, it wasn't your vision, was it? It was mine.
No, it was yours.
You were going, no, I don't want to do that. So going back to your workshop, so once this is obviously a business workshop and you're doing this highfalutin visioning,
my hippie thing.
guided meditation woo stuff. So presumably once you'd done all of that woo, you had to then do some practical stuff around it.
Yes. And to be fair, it wasn't sold as where's your business going to be in 12 months' time? It was your vision for 12 months' time. They just happened to be business.
So you sold it as a woo thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But Holly was there with her ever so practical tech guidance. So it was a good balance. So yeah, we took them through a process, as I say, bigger vision, and then a process of identifying milestones along the way. And I thought I'd share what we did
Very good.
like this, because it gives you perhaps a good structure if you're in the coaching space. Although this was done in a workshop, there's no reason why you can't go through this process in the coaching space. So big vision, and then what are the milestones? And actually, once they had the vision, we worked backwards. So that's what 12 months looks like. What happens in 9 months? What happens in 6 months? What happens in 3 months? And that was a really useful task because it starts to break things down into more manageable chunks.
And I guess in business, so going back to the work I was doing around goal setting, it was 5 years. So it was a much longer process.
Yeah.
But it doesn't particularly matter what your time frame is when you're working with your coach. It's down to them as to how far ahead they want to view things.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was a specific workshop on 12 months, but if I was working with someone in the coaching room, I wouldn't specify a time frame. The next step was to identify every single action or step they could think of that they would need to take. And that included information gathering, who do they need to connect with, what resources might they need, what action steps might they need to take. Very solution focused, absolutely a massive brainstorm of each step, and then each step broken down into the smallest parts possible. So we actually got them to write every single step on a Post-it note. So they had, and a lot of Post-it notes with little steps marked on them. The room was full of marker pens and flip chart paper and
that sounds to me like project planning rather than brainstorming.
So I suppose it did turn into project planning, but the brainstorming part was what needs to be done,
right?
I suppose. And then we went into project planning with effectively they've got this timeline, this 12 months. So once they'd brainstormed all the steps, they then put them into the order within their time frame and within their key milestones along the way, what actions needed to come in what order. So obviously you can do that. You can go away and think about it and more actions will come up, but it does give you a bit of a project plan that you can then work towards. Yeah. So it was a really nice process, a really nice exercise. Even just a couple of months ago, I had some feedback from someone who'd been on that workshop saying that was amazing. So, we had a lot of fun doing it.
So thinking about that, what tool did you actually use to plan it all out?
Well, yeah, it was very technical. Holly did do a bit on here's some tools that you can use in the future, but we basically used a massive piece of flip chart paper and we got them to get creative and put their project plan onto the flip chart paper in any way that made sense for them. So some people did have a project planning kind of concept. So they divided the sheet with horizontal lines and there was an element of their project on each line and they put their actions across that line. Other people, it looked like a spiral. Everyone was just very creative in how they planned it.
Yeah.
But it did focus on that order so that they could then look at what comes first.
Yeah. It kind of slightly unnerves me a little bit that people were just allowed to do it in whatever way they want. Because I imagine that some people just aren't that good at organising what needs to come where, and they might need some help in their organisation. Yeah,
and obviously we were there in that working space so that we could help them and assist them and things like that. But most people, did get to the point where they had this plan, even if it looked like a load of coloured Post-it notes on a flip chart, which is what it was, but it allowed them then to identify what comes next.
Yeah. And
what's the first step?
Within coaching, that is really important. There's the what comes next.
Yeah.
How likely is it that you're going to take that step within the time frame you've set yourself?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so once we did all that, we then honed it right down to what's the first step and went into that kind of coaching conversation. How likely are you to make it happen, that kind of thing. Yeah. And then obviously if we're looking at it in the coaching space, is those subsequent sessions with our coachee will be a great place to explore.
Did it happen?
Did it happen? Yeah. What step did you take? What got in the way? What worked? What did you learn? What needs adjusting? And that kind of thing.
Yeah. And obviously at that point, if things haven't gone well, you might need to look at whether this is the real goal, whether it's what they actually want to do, perhaps look at their motivation, what's getting in the way of doing it, what rewards they might set themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe they need to step away from it. It's just a coaching conversation again, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's not a judgment space of, well, you said you're going to do that and you haven't done it. Why haven't you done it? It's more of, it's interesting.
Yeah.
What's going on there then?
Let's have a conversation about that. Absolutely. So, yeah. And I think not just going for that end goal, but like you say, the rewards along the way, how are you going to celebrate those milestones? Really important.
Yeah. So I do think that the deeper work, the emotional, psychological barriers to the change, and if they've not gone ahead and done it, are really interesting to explore. And that's where, as transformational coaches, we come into our own a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to set goals. It's very easy to say, yes, I'm going to do this. This is my next step. I'm going off to do it. But if they don't do it, it is that deeper exploration of what's getting in the way of you taking that step that you said you were going to take. It could be they just don't want to do it.
It could be. But hopefully after all that work, then they would have something that they really wanted to do and were motivated to do. Yeah,
and obviously other aspects of their psyche will come in. So if they are a procrastinator or have perfectionism, it might be that they've not moved ahead with something because it wasn't perfect. So there are all sorts of things that might get in the way from a transformational coaching approach that we would want to explore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if someone was coming from having just learned to be a goal-focused coach, they wouldn't always be able to do the transformational work.
No, and I think that would be a place of judgment then, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you haven't done it. Those accountability coaches, they go, well, you said you were going to do this. You haven't done it. Come on. What? Whereas we're much more curious about, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good. So in summary, we've talked about creating a vision, doing that bit of planning. I say bit of planning, might be a lot of planning, but establishing some milestones. Talk about brainstorming the action steps that people might, putting it all out there. Yeah. All the steps.
Yeah.
And mapping it out in some way. So creating a bit of a timeline. And then looking at what the next step is. What's that first step? And then in future sessions, checking in, making sure it's happened.
Yeah, and those ongoing conversations.
Talk about it if it hasn't happened.
Absolutely.
So what other tips would you give our listeners around goals and planning?
Well, I think for me, I've already mentioned it, I wouldn't set a timescale or a deadline. Like I say, that example I've given was a workshop, but if someone was talking to me in the coaching space about a goal, about a vision, I never put a timescale on it. That's for them to do. I think also a reality check is important, because what we found was when people were planning those actions and when they were going to do them, everyone wanted to put as many actions in the next month as possible, because they were excited and motivated and fired up. And I think that doesn't always help. You kind of run out of steam, or you try to do too much, then you get behind. So we always underestimate how long things are going to take. And also, if we're dependent on someone else, we don't have any control over how long they're going to get back to us or do the thing they're supposed to do. So really spreading out the actions along our timeline and being realistic about when things are going to fit into everything else. And then that ecology check that I mentioned. How is this going to impact them and their well-being and the other aspects of their lives? I think that's important.
Yeah. Good. And a couple of things come to me there. So one is that, we're saying we leave it to the coach to decide on the time frame. But there you've given a very good example of you setting a time frame for a workshop and people coming along going, oh yes, the next year.
Yeah.
So buying into the fact that it is a year. And I know that some coaching organizations will do a 90-day planning session and people will go along sort of ready to do that. So there is something about having a set time. So within the coaching space, if you're being person-centered, we would let them choose that. But there is something about focusing on a specific time that seems to help. And the other thought I had was in terms of that, perhaps people want to rush off and be all fired up. And there's something about their personality and how they show up to tasks which might influence the way that they go about all of this. And in our next episode, we're going to be talking about Belbin team roles, which very much plays into this. So you might have people that are very fired up, want to get on with it, and then other people are much more measured and want to plan it all out before they get on with it. So I think that'll be interesting take on planning and completing tasks that people will just have different ways of going about it.
Sounds good. Sounds like it will fit together quite nicely.
Very good.
Almost like we planned it.
There was no fear of that. It's just a lucky coincidence. Serendipitous.
Fantastic.
Thank you for that, Helen. Enjoyed that.
Great. And I look forward to hearing about Belbin next time.
Next time. Bye for now.
For now.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.